What is up? Steadfast Baseball episode 2, part 2 of 5 ways to a winning mindset. In the first part, if you have not watched it yet, the link will be up somewhere up there and will be down in the description too. But check that out. In part 1, we discussed don't rely don't rely on your talent alone, and also build your grit. And this next way to develop a winning mindset, generate momentum with small steps. And thinking about this phrase, it reminds me of reading a book, right? To get to the end of the book, you read it page by page. And if there's 200 pages in a book and you read a page a day, it'll take you roughly 200 days. If you read more than 5, that gets you closer to your end goal, which is finishing the book. And I think, taking those small steps really goes far as building that momentum, right? And I think the hardest part is getting started, but once you get the momentum, what they say is, momentum is hard to stop too. But the first part is to generate it. And how do we generate that momentum we need for a winning mindset? And what do you think? How does one generate momentum with small steps?
Hmm. I think the first thing you'd have to consider is where do you want to go, right? What's the end point? What's the goal, right? Because if you don't know where you're trying to go, then you can't create a plan, right? It's kind of like a hike, right? You want to get to the top of this mountain. Well, okay, we want to end up here. Well, then what's the path, right? Then we generate a map, right? And then once you have that plan, it's measurable, right? You can measure out those small steps, and you can kind of see your improvement and how things are going. And like you said, once things start going and you start climbing that mountain, um, and that goal starts to be a lot more apparent to you, like, man, I really can do this. Um, yeah, it's hard to stop. It's almost addictive, right? You kind of see the plan, you execute daily, and before you know it, you're there, right? So I think generating a goal, making sure you know where you're trying to go, and then trying to figure out ways to get there, right? And I think I like working from the ends, right? So, um, like let's say a goal would be to throw 90 miles an hour, right? And maybe right now I'm at 70 miles an hour, right? There's certain steps that you're gonna have to go day by day, and creating small goals to reach that big goal, I think is a really big thing, because you don't want to get so overwhelmed with not reaching that goal every day, right? That major goal, like, oh man, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But if you create that plan with smaller goals in between, you have something to celebrate on the way. It's like when you're hiking up that mountain, there's a couple of viewpoints along the way that you can look back on and be like, man, this is really beautiful. But it's not over yet. Let's keep going. And I think those little viewpoints kind of motivate you a little bit more to continue, right?
Yeah, that what you said, building those short-term goals to eventually meet that main goal is critical, because then you can reflect and be like, oh man, I started here and now I'm here. Wow, that distance I've traveled or hiked, or from 70 to 75 or 80, man, that's very close to reaching that goal. And I think sometimes you kind of get discouraged, like yeah, like, oh man, I got so much more to go, or you have You want that short term like gratification, like, oh yeah, like, oh, I want it now, but what I think to me comes to mind is patience, having that patience and that steadfastness to reach at the minimum your short-term goals will definitely give you like a check mark, like, yeah, okay, we checked this box off. I got to 80 miles per hour, good. Okay, now let's start from 80 and work our way up to 85, 90. you know that the patience, the setting those small goals really does give you some time to reflect and even see where you're at, and move forward. But yeah, momentum, building that momentum.
Yeah, and for some guys, I mean, it's like 80 to 80.1, 80.2, 80.3, and you get to 81 and you're like, dang, that's a whole mile an hour in a month, right? And you're thinking to yourself, man, what about 2 months? What about 3 months? What about 4 months? And those little victories should be celebrated, I think. You know, when you hit a PR, if that PR is just point 0.1 over that velocity range that you're aiming for, you're gaining ground. And that always pumps me up for sure to see a guy in the facility or at practice, one day, after many practices, maybe finally catch a ball or finally get their first hit, right? Or field a ground ball, throw it to first base for the first time, you know. And all those little victories, I think, can give you a little bit of energy, that momentum that we're talking about, to continue, right? And it's fun. It's fun to see growth. It's fun to kind of see how that plan is moving along. And sometimes it moves slow, sometimes it moves fast. Sometimes you get that low lying fruit, where there's a couple of mechanical things that you can do to really really up your game. And I love seeing when players find that. But it does take that daily grind, that grit, to continue to come out. But I think what helps a lot is those little victories for sure along the way, right?
Yeah, the small steps in order to complete your main goal.
Mhm.
And I think it's a good segue into the next way to develop a winning mindset is trust your vision. And trusting is hard to do, especially you're with yourself. Like, how do I trust myself, like, to accomplish my overall vision, my goal? And there's a lot of distractions, in life and in baseball. Um, Other players, your teammates, sometimes are better than you or even worse than you. And where do you see yourself in the dynamic of your team, and how do you how do you end up trusting your abilities to accomplish your vision? But trust your vision. Um, First, have one specific vision, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really have a whole buffet of things like, oh, I want to do this and this and this and this. But, focus, honing in, tunnel vision, that one thing. Okay, I'm gonna make, my goal is to make the high school team, make the varsity high school team, you know, and trusting that you are going to make it, I think almost comes with, positivity. Um, constantly telling yourself, like, I am gonna do it. I am gonna, go out to practice every day. I am gonna do the the training that my coaches is fitting me to do for me specifically. And trusting yourself and ends up, you know, you basically trusting your coaches, and those small steps, I guess, help you.
Yeah, I think, and also, like you said, your coaches, right? Trusting your coaches. I think there's a lot of information out there, right? And I think getting all that information and kind of sorting through those things and getting a little bit more confidence about maybe, you know seeing the people who have gone before you, I think is a really important thing, right? We talk about coaches, and I've been fortunate enough to have really great coaches, um, high school to college. I've had a lot of great uh, leaders that kind of go out there and when you ask them questions, they give you the answers, and you can kind of gain a little bit broader vision, right? And you can kind of see their vision of what they had when they were playing baseball, and kind of the culture of what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And I think getting to know your coaches and looking out for more information, right? There are people who have done those things, who have accomplished great things, right? Major leaguers, minor leaguers, guys that have gotten drafted, maybe even guys that have just played Division 1 NCAA baseball, right? And you kind of look at their path and kind of grasp some things from those players. And maybe there might be some players out there that might kind of give you like you kind of feel like you're related to them, or kind of play like them, or you swing like them, you pitch like them. And I think watching others and getting more information from the people who are doing it or have done it, getting that information is super vital for your vision, because I think you kind of gain perspective of maybe how they grew up, and some of these players in the major leagues may not have had the best opportunities out there, right? Maybe undrafted, went to a tryout, maybe grew up in Cuba, didn't have a glove. You talk about Mariano Rivera with
I was literally just thinking about that.
right, the cardboard glove, and there's a lot of players out there, they just find a way, right? And I think when you see those different perspectives, it kind of gives you an idea of maybe how grateful you are in your spot, or how to handle some adversities that you thought were really, really heavy. And then you see a different perspective of baseball, or a different player out there that's like, man, this is what this guy's doing. He's training with tires, or he didn't have coaches, or he had bricks or rocks, and
Bottle caps and
right.
broomsticks.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I seen, right, like, you reference others' journeys, and compare it to yours, as far as like, okay, what to take from it, or what types of challenges others faced versus mine. Like, you are, you, for those who tend to be grateful for where they came from, that definitely benefits them, knowing that gratitude in your life. And thinking about kids playing with sticks and stones in the middle of the street of Dominican Republic, or even Africa. I've seen some kids in Africa swinging, you know hand me down bats
Mm-hmm.
barefoot. It's crazy.
Playing ball. And I like that story that Bartolo Colon talked about, where he would throw rocks at mangoes in the mango tree, and trying to make them explode. And I mean, that sounds pretty fun. But you think about, what kind of skills he's gaining through that, right? Accuracy, throwing a pebble as hard as he could to see it explode, because it was just fun, right? But then you hear these stories about how these guys, were maybe playing games, right? They were playing games, but or training in these environments, and it kind of gives you a little bit of different perspective. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. Keep rolling. Let's keep
Um,
rolling.
I think it gives you this perspective of like,
Try pause for that, man. Oh no, wait, no, no. Keep going, keep going. But yeah, continue that time.
I think the Bartolo Colon throwing rocks at the mangoes on the mango tree, right? I mean, maybe to him it was just he was just a little kid having fun, but I think it really relates to kind of that skill of hitting a target, right? You're throwing an object and hitting a target, and and really just finding ways to get yourself better, right? There's lots of opportunities out there. You don't need the TrackMan, you don't need the Rapsodo, you don't need a big facility to get your training in. I mean, it could be running on the beach, could be skipping rocks, right? And I mean, some of those things maybe you just don't know because you're just a kid and you're just doing it and you're having fun and that's just the environment you grew up in. But I think in hindsight, if you are a player out there and you see these stories, I would suggest going out there and trying it out. You don't need all this fancy equipment to get good. You just you need the willingness to go out there and kind of find the way,
Yeah.
right?
And thinking of this mango story with Bartolo Colon, like at practice, coaches, pound all these drills into your brain, um, consciously, right? We consciously go through the drills in order to do those drills subconsciously on the field, right? Like, we do all these breakdowns of how to feel the ball, but in the game, you just do it, right? But then your body remembers all these drills that you do to, correctly feel the ball, naturally, smoothly. And I think, growing up like Bartolo, maybe he consciously was like, yeah, I'm going to aim this rock at this mango. So he did that so much with the thought of, man, I want to make it to the pros one day. I want to be like Roberto Clemente. I want to be like, you know, maybe somebody he dreamed about becoming. And then now when he gets to the pros, he's just unconsciously doing that in
Mm-hmm.
the strike zone. He's so smooth and so natural. I mean, his size would make you think like, man, this guy doesn't work out, but throughout all his childhood, he's been doing that, and then, now subconsciously he's just mashing.
He's throwing rocks at mangles, right? I mean, you think about the catcher's mitt as a mangle and the rock is the baseball, and it's just like, I'm gonna make that glove explode just like those mangles. And whether it was conscious or subconscious, whether he was just having fun or out there actually training, I mean, I think either way, it really benefited him, and maybe it kind of kept him a little bit more, in game mode, like having fun,
Mhm.
and keeping him loose and knowing where he kind of came from. It's just like, man, that's a dream to be on the mound for, a major league team and actually, pitching, throwing cheese.
And yeah, just, I mean, what we, from this point of view now, looking back on his career, is like, man, it's crazy, you know but yeah, that trusting that vision, goes a long way as far as building that winning mindset.
Mhm.
And but the first, not really the first thing, but I think the main thing is really this last number five. The fifth way to develop a winning mindset is take action. Do it. You just got to get started, and thinking about it, thinking about doing something, you tend to start to have doubts the longer you think about something, like, oh man, but so and so, he's better right now, and oh man, I can't get that starting shortstop position for the high school team. Like, maybe I'll do something else, or maybe I don't know, like, but it starts to build that doubt in you. The longer you take in order to take action, I feel like it just leaves you in a place of like if, ands, or buts.
Mm. And I think it plays into the generate momentum thing we talked about earlier, right? That's those small steps, It doesn't need to be super big. It could be playing outside, playing a little wiffle ball game with the boys outside on the street, right? It could be going out and playing catch. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. It just needs to be, you just need to take those first steps out there and figure out a way to have fun. And maybe it's throwing a tennis ball against a wall, right? I mean, um, all of those things are steps towards, that vision that you have of, hey, getting better, right, every day, and maybe making that JV team or making that 12U team or whatever it is. You might have people around you. You might be alone, um, but just getting out and playing and having fun, I think, is the main key. I mean, not just baseball, but all sports, right? Going out and trying something, going out and trying uh, football or basketball, all those other sports. You can gain different skills from those things. You can learn about different coaching perspectives, players' perspectives, and kind of like how we talked about grasping things from other players or grasping things from the things that you see. Um, taking action could just be putting yourself in that environment, right? I heard Pharrell talk about it, the rapper, right? Um, if you're a slower runner, join a group of runners that run faster than you, right? You're bound to run faster. You're just bound to do it when you surround yourself with people who are either better than you. Sometimes it might be a little humiliating because you're the worst, or you're not that good. But I think having faith and having that vision of, hey, I'm here because I'm trying to get better, and eventually there's going to be a point where, yeah, I'm running with those guys that used to burn me, or those guys that used to be running in front of me. Now I'm leading the pack, right? Because you're just constantly you're willing to go out and put that, I guess, your humility on the line almost a little bit, right? You got to have a little bit of humor with it too. I think, knowing that, hey, maybe I'm not that fast, but I know I'm hanging out with the right guys, and the guys around me know how to run fast. Therefore, if I ask them questions, hey, how'd you get that fast? Hey,
It's crazy.
what are you doing to kind of up your game? Because and that's definitely gonna help
Yeah,
any player, right? To just be
yeah,
surrounded, be in the right environment, and be willing to ask questions, right? And to be willing to know, like, hey, I'm not that good, but I'm trying to get better. And I guarantee you, anybody out there that is running faster than you, they'd be more than willing to help you, right? If you're eager enough to go and ask. But then if you ask, just make sure you show up,
yeah. You don't be wasting your time,
right?
wasting other people's time.
Right.
But yeah, taking action doesn't mean, right, like how you're saying, it doesn't mean you need all the fancy equipment. It doesn't mean you even have to do anything. Maybe just putting your mind into that uh, particular place, asking questions, doing your research. Hey, how do I get a scholarship to go to college? Or how do I, like, doing those steps? That is also action too, right? Asking questions,
Mm-hmm.
or even just thinking positive, thinking those thoughts
Right,
is,
making a plan, making a goal. That could be that first step to take. That's taking action, right? You're creating a plan, and then once you have that plan, I would definitely suggest writing down questions for sure. That way you have something to kind of, if you do meet that person at a certain event or a game, or another coach at a clinic or something, like your local clinic with your local coaches, right? Hey, what kind of experiences did you have that you think are is going to be beneficial for me at my age?
you know,
You know?
you know, yeah. 5 ways to develop a winning mindset. Don't rely on your talent. Build your grit. Generate momentum with small steps. Trust your vision. The last, and I think most important, take action. That is part 2 of our episode 2. Check out part 1. Don't forget, subscribe, like, comment, leave some comments. What do you think takes, what does it take to have a winning mindset? I mean, Kobe Bryant, all these legends of the game, they all have their perspectives of having a winning mindset. But comment below. Stay tuned for more Steadfast Baseball Podcasts. Let's go. Shoot.